just diving straight into the code here. The models, is that readable for everybody, or I need to make that bigger?
Bigger.
Say when. 1 or 2. 2 or 3. Yes? Good? Good? Okay, cool. So there's, this is a highly contrived example. Please never define models or people this way, because bad things will happen. Mainly your code will become unmaintainable very quickly. But a street is just a name and a postal code, because of course zip codes are unique for street names, right? It's America. A city is just a name, and an address has a street, and it's required, and it has a city, and it's required, and it has a state, which is just 2 characters, because I don't want to normalize. And a postal code is just a property. These are fancy things you can do with models in Django. This is not the interesting bit of the talk. A person has a name, and they have an address. Yay. That's kind of cool. So, a test that is painful is going to look a bit like this, where I just want to try creating a person. Well, great, now I've got to make a street, and then I've got to make sure that I have a city, and then I assign that to a person. So he has an address, and then he has the street associated. He's in some city, but he's in California because California. If I want to make lots of people, I can do the same thing and then just, iterate over that and say, make me 32 people and have all their names be blarg, because I don't really care what their name is. I just want to make sure that I can actually put 32 objects in the SQLite database and it won't crash on me. Fine. That's all well and good. A slightly less painful method is going to look more like this. We don't care about that yet. I'm not going to show you that. I say, give me a person named Bob, and I'm done. All of those other things get created for me. This is kind of cool. And I assert that Bob's in there. Yay. I want 32 people. I'm done. I don't even have to write a for loop for this. It just does it. And every single one of them is going to have a unique name, because a factory is just a collection of classes. Get up there. There's nothing real scary going on here. You've derived from a factory, Django model factory. You tell it what model you're associating this factory with, and you just start telling it the fields that you care about. If every single field is not required for your model, that's sufficient. If you actually need things in there, then you start telling it, I want random text, and I want 30 characters in it. I want a postal code. It's a sequence. Every time I call the factory, it's going to say sequence 0, 1, 2, so on and so on. And I just format that into a string. You can do anything with that sequence. You can return an int, you can return a string, you can return a modulus, do whatever you want. A city factory, in this case, is just another way of declaring the exact same thing. I could have done this with the class declaration method. It would have been fine. It's fairly simple, so doing this with the functional definition of it equates to the same thing. Where this hurts you is if you've got something fancy where you need, after I've created this model, I want you to take this action with it. At that point, you do have to use a class. There are hooks. Read the docs. Also a great website. The address factory, same idea. I just have a collection of states. So every single time I want an address, that is not actually part of the address model, so don't pass it down to the model when it tries to create this in the factory. Give me a street. I knew that was going to happen. Give me a street. I don't care what it is. Just make me a street. Make me a city, too. And then loop over the states, and just if you reach the end, go back to 0. So every single time I'm going to get someone in California, then Massachusetts, then Minnesota, then Texas, then Tennessee, then Washington, I hope, then Oregon, and then right back to California. Kind of cool if you're creating things in bulk and you actually want them to be a little bit different. And then the person factory, they have an address. I don't need to define anything else. It's a subfactory. It fans all the way out for me. And they have a name. We're done. So, running my tests doesn't look like that. Looks like that. Done. So, why is that better than Model Mommy? It's not. It's what you learned first. I happened to learn Factory Boy first, and I kind of like the name a little bit better. Why is that better than doing it by hand? Because if we change our schema, you're going to have to touch a lot of your tests. If I decide to add a new field, or if I say, every single person has a unique name, then I'll try doing this, you're going to hate yourself. making 32 people is suddenly a painful experience unless you want to do string interpolation everywhere you need to make 32 or however many people you're making. So, why is this better than fixtures? Because JSON. Enough said. Right? So, things I do in here, name your factories, model name, factory. It makes it easier to see what's going on in your tests, and you can do fancy magic testing. I will come back to that. It's of debatable value. Heck, I'll just show you now. My fancy magic testing is this. You can create a list of all the factories, filtering them so that if the name factory appears in the class name, and it is a subclass of Django Model Factory, I now have all of those classes in a list. That's kind of cool because it now means that I can say for every single one of my factories, I'm not going to give you any arguments, just try and create yourself. That's what this yield statement down here does. It calls this function up here, which then says call my factory, and then assert that it actually created something. This is a little bit of meta programming. I don't recommend this unless you're comfortable reading this kind of stuff or you've done a lot of Ruby programming in the past. I like this because it guarantees that every single factory I write, I can just say, give me something, and it will give me something. It might not be very valuable, but it's there. You can do other fancy things where you make sure that there's a factory for every single model you define. Another horrible thing I do to my poor coworkers. Put all of your factories inside a thing called factories inside your tests, and silo your tests to the app. Because if you have lots of factories, then at least you know what app they relate to. Just don't name it factory inside your tests, because then you have a name clash and bad things happen there too. Other things I've done in this project, I make a setup pi. I'm pedantic about that kind of stuff. Use a virtual env. Just use a virtual env. Things I didn't do in here, use cookie cutter. Pi Danny wrote it. He's pretty smart. His wife's really smart too.
Audrey
They're both, excuse me, Audrey did?
Yeah, PyDanny wrote the Django cookie cutter. Audrey wrote cookie cutter.
You're exactly right. Audrey's really smart. PyDanny's just kind of smart, apparently. They're both published authors. It is, however, super opinionated, just like PyDanny is. If you disagree with his settings, fork it. That's what GitHub's for. Things I did, things I used, Django, factory one, PyTest Django, very cool. Some people have heard of Nose. PyTest is cooler, sort of. Because we have the technology, we can do this better. Just to show what would happen, just very briefly, if I were to do something terrible and say, where's my model? That names are now unique, and then run my tests, bad things happen. That's really not what I need. What I need is for it to stop on the first failed test and give me a native traceback. Sorry, I didn't expect to have a tiny, tiny screen. It's great. You'll notice my not painful tests where I was using factories all still pass because my factories for names is a fuzzy text. So if there's some random chance it might create two names of the same thing, at which point it will fail. But they didn't. Thank God. And test painful where I was trying to create people, lots of them, all of them with the name Blarg, failed immediately. So, as you make changes, it's a little bit easier to adapt factories and just have it all just fan out to the rest of your tests and not have to touch like 90 test files when you've changed one thing in one model. So, anyhow, that's it. Questions? I just like that picture. Go ahead.
Can you say again where you put your factories relative to the tests?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, just assume this is my Django project. I have a source folder. It has my factory void presentation. Inside there is my settings, my URLs, my WSGI file. The managed py is above it. Inside here, I put the people app. Okay. I haven't seen other people really do this, but I like this method where I have the test fully outside. Most apps would have a tests file right here, and Django just encourages you to put all of your tests for the app in the same file, because your apps are supposed to be small. You should have like thousands and thousands and thousands of tests, but if you do and they're all in the same file and you try and read it later, well, then you've tried to read it later and it probably didn't work. So I like to split these up quite a bit. I have a test people app where I name it test underscore the name of the app just to make it obvious as to what I'm testing. I put the factories file right there. It's nice and small. And then I just start putting my test modules here with some mildly descriptive name. And then the actual classes just kind of show up in there. Turn that down so I can see. Anybody else?
Also, is this online? Your example
Yes.
code?
Yes. Get out of presentation mode. One of these days. GitHub. GitHub. That's awesome. Because GitHub is where I spend most of my life today. It's all right there. This will also get into the PythonSD GitHub stuff as well. So there's nothing too fancy going on in here. That thing where I said make a setup pie, make a setup pie. It's not hard. I mean, you can pretty much just copy mine if you really want to. That's probably not readable. That's probably readable. That's all it takes.
Any other questions? All right, cool. Can somebody turn on the lights so that we can? All right. Intimacy mode is over. So at this point, the presentations are over. There will be mingling. If you want to mingle on the deck where it is less hot, feel free. Don't let me stop you. At some point, probably in about 20 minutes, we will mosey over to O'Brien's. If you are into that sort of thing, they have good food and good beer. It is across the street, walkable, if you don't know where it is. So, yeah, mingle.
We finished that thing using its sys get recursion limit or set recursion limit.